my name is Vanessa and I'm a junior at Singapore American School. So my topic is on alien abductions and, well, you can see my title, Exploring the Inner Space of a Masochist's Mind. The reason I chose inner space is because I'm taking a psychological perspective. I'm taking a psychological take on the issue, so, inner space occurs in the mind. And alien abduction experiences among masochistic females. So I want to apologize in advance because I have a lot of words on my slides, but that's because originally we were going to just send you the slides. So the reason I have so many words is so that you guys can actually read it. But I won't actually read everything on my slide. I'll just give a quick overview, and if you want more details, then you can read the words on my PowerPoint later. So for my introduction, so why did I choose alien abductions? There's two main reasons why I chose alien abductions. The first one is because it really interests me. As a kid, I always had a dream of being abducted by aliens, but I thought that rather than letting it remain a dream, I should, pursue it academically and really investigate it. And then the second reason is because it represents, even though we can't be entirely sure that this is an aspect of psychology, that it's psychological, many scholars believe it is. And because it has such a stigma of being, crazy and like for lunatics, it's a relatively unexplored area of psychology, so I wanted to pursue it in depth. And why did I choose masochism? Well, as I was going through my findings, which I'll go to later, I noticed that there were a lot of masochistic elements in these abductions. The pain, the humiliation, the loss of control. And it was not only my observations that confirmed this, but I've also read a lot of peer-reviewed articles, and they made the same note, but they couldn't really form a concrete conclusion of why that is. So by using evidence from different branches of psychology, I wanted to explore that connection. And why gender roles? This specific part, gender roles, is still subject to change, but the reason I chose gender roles is because masochistic fantasies, according to Western scholars, often arise from external pressures, and like for women it's victimization and having to conform to gender roles. And as I was going through my alien abduction accounts, I noticed that a lot of the women there, because I'm narrowing my scope to women, a lot of the women did always express dissatisfaction with their life, and they all had the traditional female role. So I thought that was an interesting correlation, and I thought it was worthy of investigation. So my research question: to what extent does the scene in which an alien probes a woman's body represent a masochistic fantasy of both pain and a loss of control that has arisen from the pressure to conform to 21st century gender roles? So pain and a loss of control are two different aspects of sadomasochism, and I narrowed it down to that because although originally I was only going to choose one, the interaction between pain and a loss of control is prevalent in each of my abductions. So I decided to, because my original question was a bit too narrow, so I decided to broaden it to include those two aspects. Approach and method. Well, for specifics, you can read the slide, but basically, I'm doing secondary source research, so that means I'm synthesizing a wide range of existing primary and secondary source research in order to develop my own conclusion. And part of my evidence is the abductees themselves, their own experiences, and I know what you're thinking. Oh, this type of evidence is, the least credible because it's anecdotal. But the thing is, I'm backing up I'm corroborating anecdotal evidence with experimental results. So even though the nature of alien abductions is anecdotal, the experimental results lend credibility to these accounts. And specifically, in the secondary source research method, I'm doing thematic analysis, which is basically it's a technique used to explore patterns in qualitative data. Yeah, and it's usually used when you're dealing with an extensive set of qualitative data, as is my case with the alien abduction narratives. Key critical terms. So the first three are the most important, so you can read the rest later because I don't want to read off my PowerPoint. But masochism, there's a lot of different definitions for masochism. The traditional one, the one you may be thinking of, is when you experience pain and derive sexual gratification from it. But the one I'm specifically exploring is the one that systematically makes it impossible for a person to continue being aware of him or herself. So basically, an escape from the self. And the self is basically our self-concept. So masochism, it allows us to escape from the burden of the self. And then there's gender roles. So it's basically what society has determined is appropriate for a female and a male. So basically, traditional female and male characteristics. The man works, the woman stays at home. Those types of traditional definitions. And then there's cognitive dissonance, which is basically the mental distress that happens when you know something happened to you, yet your mind tells you it's not possible. So these people, they've had alien abduction experiences, and they know it's real, yet their mind says that it's completely illogical for it to be real. And that's very important for analyzing the abductee's trauma. And it's very important for, when I talk about future implications, it's very important for that and for the significance of my project, which I will discuss in my last slide. So my working thesis is the following. Since the alien abduction phenomenon lies outside the boundaries of conventional standards of reality, scientists have dismissed these abduction accounts as untrue. However, the stark consistencies across alien abduction experiences warrant psychological attention. Although the inherent lack of information currently prevents us from pinpointing the definite cause of this experience, the parallels between masochistic fantasies and alien abduction experiences, coupled with societal pressures, the reason I put that in quotations because I will find a more specific term over the course of my research, because right now I'm still kind of iffy with that. So that will be more specific. Experienced by both abductees and masochists suggest that alien abduction experiences among female adults represent a unique and extended form of masochistic fantasy that has arisen from the 21st century pressure to conform to gender roles. So that's what I'll be proving in my paper. Or disproving, depends. So my findings and evidence. So for the anecdotal portion of my findings, so in this specific PowerPoint, I've only included 4 out of the 15 abductees I have analyzed so far, and 1 out of the 10 experimental studies I have gathered in order to provide you with a taste of the findings I have gathered. So I won't provide everything because a lot of my research involves finding patterns, so I'm just giving you a little taste of what that's like. And so abduction narratives, that would be a huge limitation in my paper, because abduction narratives could be falsified, they could be made up, they could be fabricated. But so, and though the ways in which these abduction narratives are retrieved is controversial, it's through the use of hypnosis, and some psychologists say it's okay, other psychologists say it's completely uncredible and leads to false accounts. I have gathered my alien abduction narratives from Dr. John E. Mack. He was a PhD psychiatrist and professor at Harvard Medical School, and he became the leading authority of the alien abduction phenomenon. Dr. Adith Fior, PhD in psychology from the University of Miami, and has extensive experience as a hypnotherapist, and David M. Jacobs, who was a leading expert in the field of ufology and had a PhD in ufology. So although the accounts may not be credible, this is as credible as we can get. Oh, so meet the abductees. So I have 4, so I won't be able to go into each one, but basically, actually I won't even discuss it, because if you want to know, you can read about it. Basically, what I have done with my findings is I have analyzed the concept of abductees themselves, but I have also researched their background, and I'm finding the links between the two. So, for instance, Eva, her last name has not been revealed to protect her identity. So Eva reported that as a child, she frequently felt that her father's absence affected her, and she grew up as a person who constantly wanted to please others. So what I'm basically doing is I'm taking their background, I'm taking their experiences, I'm finding common patterns among their background. So of course, not every single abductee is going to have an absent father. Not every single abductee is going to have a desire to please others. But based on their experiences, I'm trying to find the common underlying feelings, and using that to draw a connection between those feelings and the abductions themselves. And what I have noticed so far among my abductees is that their experiences, especially among the females, are very consistent. An overwhelming majority, about 80, out of the 20 I have read, about 18 of them, they've all been experimented on. They've all been probed with needles. They've all communicated telepathically with the aliens. They all report that there is one alien leader and there's a bunch of spectators. So the alien abduction experience itself is common across all my abductees. So that's very important, because not only does it lend credibility to their accounts, but it also enables me to find a connection because there's common ground. And their backgrounds are quite similar. They all either encountered adversity as a child or report dissatisfaction with the current life. And I'll have to investigate that in further detail later on, because though I do have some ideas of the connections, I need to make sure that they go from being correlational to more causal. So I basically summarized the 4 abductees. So I record the incidents, reaction to their experience. Abductee number 2, Sarah, here's her background, here's what happened. Abductee number 3, Shayla, her background, what happened. And here, like, this is what they said directly, so it would be primary source evidence. And then there's abductee Betty Hill, which I have over 12 pages of information because she's the most widely researched abductee. And then, yeah, so my brief thoughts are, even though they've been retrieved through controversial methods, they come from the most credible sources possible. So, like, I can't get any more credible than that. And experimental studies. So, basically, what am I doing with these experimental studies? So, for this one in particular, it was an experimental study done on BDSM, and it very much parallel, something I found interested, that the results of this study, which were masochists themselves engage in this type of behavior because it allows them to reach psychological release, freedom from day-to-day roles, so gender roles, and an escape from the self, which is our self-concept. And what I found interesting was that a lot of the abductees' own experiences and what they had to say about their experiences parallel the results of these experimental studies. And as I said before, this lends credibility to their account and allows me to establish connections between masochism and alien abductions. And if you want to know specifically what I found in my experimental studies, you can just read this in your free time. So the significance. So the significance of my project. So you may be thinking, why is this significant? Well, first of all, alien abductions, as I said before, is an unexplored area of psychology. So it's significant because I'm contributing something to the literature. I'm contributing findings, and though the correlation may not hold strong in the future as more evidence comes along, for now I think in the motivational area of psychology, it will bring some progress and allow psychologists to better understand the alien abduction phenomenon. And also, I think the true significance of this paper lies in the fact that regardless of whether these experiences are literally real or subjectively real, all the abductees experience trauma afterwards. So, the goal of mental health professionals is to basically restore people's emotional health and, keep them emotionally stable. And alien abduction experiences, because of cognitive dissonance, so they know that what they experience should not be true, but is true. Because of that, and because just the trauma of the experience itself, it does inflict psychological harm on them. So at the very least, the significance of this project lies in the fact that I am proving that it's a masochistic fantasy, and this masochistic fantasy arises from circumstances in their life that have, caused them to have this traumatic experience. And mental health professionals should treat this as some sort of psychological disorder, something that needs to be dealt with, and that needs to be dealt with because it's affecting someone's health. It's affecting someone's emotional stability. So mental health professionals should take that into account. And so that's pretty much the significance of my study, to help the abductees recover from emotional trauma and to bring the psychological community one step closer to understanding the real nature of the phenomenon. Thank you.